Hey everyone, Howie Fisher from Fisher's Flies. Thanks for checking in. Today I'm going to be tying up a classic dry fly pattern, the Elk Hair Caddis. For the hook today, I'm using a Fulling Mill 50/50 or Ultimate Dry Fly hook in size 12. For the thread on this fly, I'm using UTC Ultra Thread in 70 Denier in tan. You could also use brown if you'd like. The color doesn't totally matter as it's going to be covered up on most of this fly. I'm going to get started with my thread right behind the eye and take it back before snipping or breaking my thread. I'm then going to take my thread all the way to the bend of the hook. For the first material on this fly, I'm going to be using ultra wire in small in the color copper. This is going to be my ribbing for the body of the fly. I'm going to tie this into the far side of the hook away from me, and I'll explain why I do that a little bit later. Once I make sure that this material is secure, I'm going to go ahead and bring my thread all the way back to the original tie-in point by the hook point. My next material is the dubbing for this fly. Here I'm using Fiberfly's dubbing in Rusty Spinner, which is a brown color. This is the UV Trout selection, so it's got a little bit of flash in there as well, which is why I like this. I'm using Fiberfly's dubbing here because it's 100% Alpaca dubbing, which is naturally water resistant. This dubbing has a very wide range of uses as the fibers are particularly long. So you can use it for a small dry fly like this, as well as some streamers as well. Since these fibers are so long, you really only need a little bit of it to build up a body on a dry fly like this. My next material is the hackle on this fly, which here I'm using Fly Fish Foods Yardbird Hackle in the color brown. Once I have the appropriately sized piece of hackle picked, I'm going to go ahead and strip some fibers off of both sides of the hackle so that I have something to tie in with. And once I've done that, I'm going to secure this feather to the top of the hook, and with the feather facing backwards, as you can see here. So this way, when I wrap, the fibers naturally want to face backwards rather than forwards and crowd the eye. So I'm going to take a wrap and a half around the front, and then I'm going to start taking open spirals backwards until I get to the end of the body. Once I've done this, I'm going to secure this feather using the wire that I tied in earlier, and I like tying this wire in on the far side of the hook for this specific part. When I wrap this wire around, I'm able to get almost a full wrap around the hook shank before securing or wrapping over the feather. So once I wrap that through, I'm going to secure this with both wraps of thread over top of and in front of the wire, and then I'm going to helicopter this wire off. Once I've done that, then I'll take my scissors and snip off this hackle feather with my renowned scissors. Again, if you've never checked them out, I really recommend you do so. These curved ones are great for dry fly patterns like this, where you want to snip off the hackle fibers like this for a landing place for your wing. So the next material here is going to be my wing material, which is Select Cow Elk and Bleached from Nature's Spirit. Just about any cow or just about any elk material will do here, any elk hair. I'm going to take off a pretty decent clump, more than I know I need, because I'm going to lose some in the process of cleaning these up. So I'm going to remove the under fur and any short or super long fibers before putting it in my stacker. I found that I really like stacking hair twice usually. And the reason why I do this is because I find that these longer fibers sometimes when you originally stack them will get in the way of the shorter fibers and they don't stack evenly. I'm sure there's probably another way to do this. If you have any suggestions, I am more than happy to hear. Please leave them in the comment. Again, this is just something that I've come to prefer to do. I'm not a super stickler about the tips being aligned, but it's just something I like to do. So I'll stack it once, cut the butt ends off, and then stack it again to make sure that I'm not clipping any fibers short. Before putting the wing on, I'm going to actually add a little bit more of this dubbing for the head. And I explained this in depth in the video that I've made about tying in any sort of deer or elk hair. The link to that is above if you'd like to listen to it in more detail. But this essentially just creates a great landing spot for this wing when I tie it in and helps secure it a little bit easier. So I'm going to measure the wing, and I want the wing to be a little bit longer than the body of the fly. I'm going to go ahead and take 2 or 3 wraps, and then I'm going to cinch this hair straight up. And what this does, again, is it keeps it from rolling around the hook so that that wing sits perfectly on top of this fly, which is where you want it. Again, this is just preference. You don't necessarily need to do this, but I like to add a little bit more dubbing over top of these wraps, again, to help secure it, but also cover up those thread wraps. Once I've done that, I'm going to bring my thread in front of my butt ends and pull my hair back and give it a couple turn whip finish. Then I'm going to snip this off, and lastly, I will cut these butts off to leave a little bit of a head on the fly. There you have it, a super simple pattern that a lot of people know. Tie them up, let me know what you think.